Is U.S. immigration attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments now so that I can get to those questions as soon as I'm finished talking about the topic that I came to talk about. So I wanted to talk about an alternative option here. Not This is not a way to get to the green card, but rather we're talking about getting the work permit through deferred action. So that's usually the the last option that's available to some of my clients. And a lot of people don't know that they can get deferred action outside of DACA. So remember, if you've watched the news, you've heard about DACA. DACA is, the deferred action for childhood arrivals. But I'm not talking about DACA. And right now, unfortunately, they're not issuing new DACAs. They're not making any new DACA determinations. What I am talking about today is deferred action for other reasons. So I'll talk about two, the medical deferred action and the labor deferred action. Labor deferred action is relatively new, and there are cases where you can ask for deferred action in other circumstances. But I'm going to narrow it down to medical, and then also we're going to talk about the labor. Now, with the deferred action, it means that you're not given an official immigration status, but you are put in a protected category where they won't use your status to deport you or take any actions against you, but they will. And they're going to put any unlawful presence on hold, so you get to stay here. And then you can get a work permit while you're on deferred action. So they provide deferred action for 2 years, and it is renewable as long as you can still show a need for the deferred action. So it's a temporary type of relief. So, for example, with a medical, if you are here or your children are here, and your children are if your child or you are facing severe health issues, maybe you can't get the kind of medical treatment you need in your country, so you need to stay in the United States to finish out your medical treatment, or the medical treatment of your children if it's your child that's sick, God forbid, or even a spouse that's sick. Then you could seek deferred action for purposes of continuing to pursue treatment. And as long as you can show that you can't get this treatment in your country. Also, if you have worked in the past for an employer, and that employer committed employment violations against you. So when we talk about employment violations, it may be where they underpaid you, they didn't pay you overtime, they abused you. In cases they discriminated against you. If this is what happened to you, then you can qualify for immigration relief through what's called the labor deferred action, where first you have to go to the Department of Labor, report this, because the whole point is you are reporting this for them to investigate, to look further into your issue and potentially seek a remedy for you. So it's to go to the Department of Labor. Once you make that report, they issue a letter of interest, which that letter of interest can be then apply for deferred action at the Department of Homeland Security. And then they will issue with that deferred action application. We also apply for employment authorization. So you would be able to, once it's approved, that employment authorization would be processed, and they would issue the work permit for the time that's needed, which is usually 2 years. And it is renewable as long as you're facing the same issue and you need to continue to have deferred action. With a medical, you do have to show that you have an economic need to work. So after you are approved for the medical deferred action, then the next step is to apply for employment authorization to be able to work while you're getting your treatment or while your child needs treatment and you need to cover the medical expenses. After the approval of the deferred action is then when you would apply for the work authorization. So if you're here, you have a health issue yourself, a severe health issue that cannot be treated in your country, you have children who need medical treatment and you can't leave them here, you need to stay with your children and the children can't be treated or they're citizens or they can't be treated in your home country, then the medical deferred action could be the solution here. If you have faced past labor violations, so if you're abused, discriminated against, underpaid, overworked, and you would like to go ahead and seek a remedy for that, you want to go ahead and report that to the Department of Labor. We work with the Department of Labor to get that letter of interest to then apply for your deferred action. So you're able to stay here and get work authorization, right? So now I'm taking questions. So this whole week, if you've missed my lives for the whole week, make sure you quickly review them because there's good information in there about ways to get the work permit. And I know that's a favorite topic for people, and it's a potential solution for those who are here without their papers. So go through the videos and just listen. You may relate to one of those videos and be able to find a potential solution. And then that's where you can get in touch with me to get started on your solution. You can, on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitch, you'll see the number going across the screen. And here on Instagram, just go to the link in the profile and you'll see everything you need to get started. There's a button to schedule your own appointment, which is really simple. And get on my schedule ASAP because my schedule is filling up. And if you want to find that solution for yourself sooner than later, now is the time to make sure you go ahead and do that. Staff is they're also available. You can call. Just go to the link in the description of this video on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Go to the description of the video. You'll see the link. You'll see the button to schedule your appointment, or go to the website and you'll see that on the profile link on Instagram. Click on that link to go to the website and you will see a number of other resources to get in touch with staff, online contact form, and online chat, along with a phone number. So many ways to get in touch to schedule that consultation. And that's where we're going to come down to evaluate your situation and then determine whether this is a solution for you. Thanks for the love. Now I'm jumping straight to questions. All right, let's see here. I see quite a few here. I filed VAWA on 8/7/21. When do I get results? So you're looking at about 2.5 years. Right now it's backed up and it seems like it's getting longer and longer. So you could be looking at 2.5 years to get the final decision or to get some sort of correspondence regarding your matter. Hello, if my family is in Florida on vacation and my husband got a job offer not related to his work back home, is it possible for the family to stay in the US? So it's going to depend on whether you all can get the status needed to stay in the US. And that's your spouse getting the job is one thing, but will they be able to sponsor your spouse? That is not going to be dependent on your spouse. That's going to be dependent on the employer and making sure that they do what they need to do so your spouse and his family can get the papers to stay here in the US. If this employer is saying, come work for me, and while you're working for me, I'll file for the papers, lies. Okay. It doesn't work that way. The employer has to be proactive in sponsoring you first, sponsoring you for a visa, sponsoring you for your green card, for you to be able to be authorized to work in the United States and for family to come here and stay. So, that's going to require consultation because it's more complex, and I'd have to understand what the situation is, who's the employer, what's the job offer, what's your current immigration status, what are they looking to apply for you? Is it a green card or a visa? How long is the job? How long is the employer looking to hire you for? Is the employer willing to sponsor the entire family? And then if the employer is going to be the one that's going to be proactively filing, I really would need to speak with the employer because the employer is going to be the one who's going to be doing the filing. So as you can see, there's a lot there. I filed my I-131 since August 2022, and it's processing at Vermont. Processing time is 8 months, and that has elapsed and still haven't gotten an update. So you probably have to get in touch with them and do a case inquiry to see what's going on. How much time it takes to get work permit in deferred action, U visa petition. So once you do get the bona fide determination letter saying that everything is good, that you will be getting the work permit. You could, right now I'm seeing a year and a half to even get those work permits. It's also backed up. It was designed to try to move faster, but I'm still seeing it's still significantly backed up. All right, so let's go to more questions, which I see more here. So I'm going to answer those questions. Good afternoon. What does request for initial evidence after a VAWA approval mean? So if you received VAWA approval, then what may be happening, and you should talk to your attorney. If you're not getting your VAWA notice and it's your attorney, always speak to your attorney because your attorney is going to have the right answers here. Because I'm just making assumptions. This is not legal advice. But it sounds like to me you got the VAWA approval and now they're looking at working towards your green card if you applied for your green card. They're now sending you requests for maybe more documentation they need to process your green card application. So that might be what may be happening, but talk to your attorney if you don't, and this is why it's important to have the representation. What are some of the implications of Title 42 now for migrants? So they are terminating Title 42, which what is happening is now the border they're expecting, and it is the border to be inundated with migrants at the border. So it's looked at as a border crisis because there are going to be so many immigrants that are coming in seeking. Many of them will be seeking asylum, and so it's what to do in that situation. So the first is that when you have a ton of people at the border and it's overwhelming at the border, it means that conditions are going to be really bad. And it also, because of their ending Title 42, they are making rules stricter. So for example, if you end up crossing the border without permission, because you want to bypass the crowd at the border, you don't want to deal with all the crowds at the border, then you will not be able to apply for asylum. So that's a very harsh penalty that they are now implementing after Title 42. And they are looking at implementing yeah, and another thing is there could be so many people at the border that they could be looking at detaining people instead of letting them go, or finding ways to turn people around because they're so overwhelmed at the border. So you didn't send in your medical, exactly. So now we're not dealing with VAWA anymore. We're dealing with the adjustment of status process for you, and that means that they probably want your medical, but they're going to tell you whether they're going to where you should mail it to. But talk to your attorney, and your attorney can fill you in on all of that. All right. I'm looking through questions, so bear with me as I just go through. Um, what are ways to show proof of cohabitation if I wasn't added to any bills? So it is going to depend on the circumstances. It's going to depend on what you have because it's not a one size fits all. So you have friends or family who had knowledge of you living together. Did you, yes, you weren't added to the bills, but did you receive important mail at the same address as your spouse? This is why I say document everything. Because even if you're in the marriage, you're here, maybe you're having a lot of problems, but start, gathering, as long as you're not breaking any laws here, don't be opening people's mail without permission or stealing people's mail. But for example, if you see the mail and you see one with your spouse's name, an envelope with your spouse's name, say a credit card company, and then you one with yours, if you take a picture of that envelope with the name, with the credit card company or some important agency writing to your spouse, or a utility bill, writing to your spouse, and then you have your important, credit card statement, bank statement, some kind of important mail, and you take a picture of that, that can show that you both were at the same address receiving mail there, and that can prove cohabitation as well. So, you have to, this is where it's important to be represented. Because of our experience, we know how to brainstorm to be able to provide the credible evidence that's needed to prove the elements in the application. uh, how long is a marriage-based green card wait time? So it's 5 months to over a year for adjustment of status, and 2 years if you're outside of the country. I'm married and I filed my tax return. Married but filing separately, is that a red flag? Removing conditions. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, have an explanation, of course, for that. But sometimes, for example, the spouse may have tax liability that you don't want to take on, and so you don't file with the spouse. Couples do that sometimes when it's not advantageous to file jointly. There are certain benefits to filing jointly, and then you may not be qualified for those benefits. So you file separately, so it just depends on your circumstances. How long after the initial evidence sent will they move forward to process the green card? So they get right to work once they get your response, then they get back to processing it. All right. So I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to call it a day. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. Okay, I see another question. How long after filing for asylum do you get the work permit? So at 150 days is when you can apply. 150 days after applying, you can apply for the work permit. And then if you apply on time, you could be seeing it at the 180 or shortly after the 180-day mark. That's not a guarantee, though, that it's going to come on exactly 180 days. It just means that if you file early and you comply with everything, you might just get it earlier. But I would say, you could be looking at 6 months, a 6 month wait, or 6 to 9 month wait for the work permit. Are they still waiving the VAWA interviews? So they are waiving interviews right now, but it's on a case by case basis. So if they have questions for you before they approve it, they'll schedule that interview. When you send the medical, is it a guarantee that they will waive the interview? So usually they will ask you to send it. If they're telling you, they'll say, send the interview, the medical, or take it to you with you to the interview. Then at that point, they still told you that they've waived it. However, if they say, we're waiving your interview, just go ahead and send the medical to this location, then at that point, they're revealing their intention to waive the interview. If you come across border, got married over a year, and being abused by your spouse, can can you file for VAWA? Yes, absolutely, you can. The wait time on a T visa decision right now, so I would say it's still the same, 6 months to 18 months for a T visa process to be completed. Oh, thank you so much. So, here, one of our viewers on YouTube has said, "Hello, Ms. Sharifa. I've been watching your videos for a while, very informative. Just wanted to say thank you." Thanks so much. Thanks for making my day on a Friday. I appreciate that. Your spouse files for you, then stop the process. Can the filing be reopened? So if they stop the process, usually when they stop the process, it means that there's some sort of conflict going on. Sometimes I find that the spouse is using this whole process against you, so they're being vindictive about that. So what I would say is schedule the consultation. Let's figure out why. Depending on why and what's happening in the marriage, you may be able to apply on your own. Now, if they stop the process too, it's urgent because they may have, I don't know if they denied the I-130, but and then automatically denied the adjustment of status application. If they did, you have to refile with on your own, refile on your own based on VAWA. However, if your adjustment of status application has not yet been denied, then what we do for our clients is we rush in. We ask the USCIS to put a hold on their adjustment of status application and connect it with the VAWA application, so that our clients can continue to get the benefits like the work permit and travel document and social security number. Thanks a lot. Very useful information. Very good job. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I see that you're repping the Jamaican flag. Yep. Thank you. If you bring a child here on a visa, how long after can you start filing for the child? As long as a child qualifies, you don't have to necessarily wait. There's nothing that says that you have to wait. Now, you want to be aware of maybe certain internal policies like the 90-day rule that the USCIS uses. That if you come into the country with a visa and then you file any paperwork, you get married in that time, or you get a job during that time, that they can assume that you came in misrepresenting your intention to just visit on a visa, and you are really coming in to do work or to stay here in the US. So, you have to be aware of that. And then also, they came in with a visa, but does the child qualify? Stay here and apply for the green card. You don't want to be in a situation where you have your child, and I've seen this before, where you're so confident that your child will be fine, and you file paperwork, and then it all comes crashing down and gets denied because the child didn't qualify. Because it's going to depend on what's your status. Are you a citizen? Are you a legal permanent resident? The child came in with a visa, but did they overstay the visa? What's their current immigration status? What's their age? I know we who have kids, no matter how, I mean, my child is young, but I know that no matter how old our children get, we're always going to see them as children. Even when they're 40 years old, we're going to see them as children. So you may be saying your child is here, that child may be a 40-year-old child. So we still do have to know the age of the child to know, are they truly considered a child under immigration policy? And what are the implications of them staying here and applying? So many follow-up questions. And this is why we do the consultation. This consultation is there to evaluate these and to personally speak and evaluate each person's needs and circumstances to determine the best solution for them. Let's see. If you VAWA case and enroll here on her visa, can you go ahead and add her to the VAWA? So the child can be included in the VAWA application, but keep in mind that you're going to have to go and get the VAWA approved before they can then get the deferred action. So that's a more complex question. The short answer is yes, the children can be included as long as they're 21 and unmarried. But where are you in the process? What are your expectations? If you're looking at the child is gonna get the green card, or, you have to understand the timing of this. The child will have to wait a while before they can then get at least deferred action through VAWA and then get the green card along with you. If you file for your stepson at age of 19 years old, how long will it take for him to file for his citizenship? So 5 years. So they would have to wait 5 years after they get their green card. If you come across a border, can you get married before putting in your asylum case? If you qualify for asylum, get your asylum case in, because there is a wait, there is a deadline of 165 days past the date of entry. So you want to get that in. If you're in deportation proceedings, you've gotten a notice to appear, you also have to keep that in mind, that now the court still has jurisdiction of your asylum and potentially the marriage, unless that court case gets terminated, so you can move forward with the marriage-based. Also, if you're currently in deportation proceedings and you get married, hire goal to convince immigration that your marriage is real. So there are so many different facts here that would have to sift through to determine what your best option is. But one thing I would say here is, with asylum, just don't put in asylum for asylum's sake. Submitting a frivolous asylum application can get you in a lot of trouble. So don't say you're going through something. Don't tell lies. Don't submit an asylum application that's just for the sake of getting the work permit, because it will bite you in the butt, where you will be permanently barred from getting your green cards or status in the US in the future. So you want to avoid. Asylum isn't there just as a something to submit frivolously. They take it very seriously, and if they don't think you took it seriously, you can face consequences. And the reason I say this is because you do have some unscrupulous people out there that just tell you to go file for asylum, and you really don't qualify for asylum. I mean, this is where I do detailed evaluations to determine what your best options are. But if you don't have any fear of returning to your country, you're not being targeted or threatened in your country, then you shouldn't be thinking you can submit an asylum application, and you shouldn't be letting anybody who claims to be an attorney, or even maybe an attorney, telling you to do this when you don't have a basis, because they will do this, take your money, file this petition, and then leave you hanging. And that's another thing I don't do. I don't leave my clients hanging. When I file, we represent our clients through the entire process. That's the goal. So you have some people that say, just file for asylum. They quickly fill out some paperwork for you. Sometimes, if you don't know what's in that application, you don't know what you said, and they just come up with something and then say they're going to file it, something is going wrong there, right? So be very careful, because there are a lot of scams going on, and there are a lot of scammers that are taking your money and saying, oh yes, go ahead and apply for this. If your spouse is filing for you, the case has been approved, then move to NVC. What happens when NVC send back your petition to the USCIS?